Hi folks, if you're Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about something that may be happening under the radar as far as a lot of people are concerned, but it's something that sticks out like sore thumb to me. And that is, where have all the startup businesses gone? That engine room of vibrant economic growth that was very unique to the West, by the way. You don't see it happening outside of the West. This is where people who don't know each other, or most of whom don't know each other, but have skills, energy, focus, capability, desire to succeed, they collaborate spontaneously, in effect, and maybe they gather around an inventor or an invention, but they nonetheless spontaneously collaborate and turn an idea into a successful business, often putting their houses on the line or working out of the proverbial garage and that sort of thing. Now, when I was a sort of young man, sort of getting, starting out into the workforce and beyond, this was something I took for granted. It was everywhere. Everywhere, in many instances, particularly in the higher tech industries, information technology and computing and that sort of stuff. But it could happen in other areas, in food technology, for example. There were these startup businesses all over the place, and they provided a lot of jobs. Some of them grew into big companies. Some didn't, by the way. Not every company went on to be successful, but the ideas, the inventions, the innovations, and so on, they turned in. And I've seen things happen very quickly. I remember going to meet a guy in Costa Mesa in Los Angeles, or just outside of Los Angeles, and he just moved into an office. The office furniture hadn't even arrived, and so I was, sitting on the floor, cross-legged, very California, and no joints though, and talking about his invention. And he'd invented a new piece of computer technology, and that was, in many ways, was to revolutionize a subset, but very important area of computing technology. And that within 5 years, it was $100 million company. And he was constantly getting requests from all sorts of people, financiers, bigger firms wanting to buy him out, and this sort of thing. But he stayed with it to create this new business that again employed many people on well-paid jobs, and and he was a great inventor and innovator, and he was smart enough to gather people around him that had the organizational skills to make it happen, and so on. Now, those businesses were numerous when I was a young guy, not only in the United States, but you saw them in Australia, and to a lesser extent in Britain. You saw them in Germany, and to some extent in Canada. Not so much outside of those areas, but Japan, interestingly, you wouldn't think that you'd see it in Japan, but they did. So it was something, and it was very much an engine room of the economy. It created jobs, it created well-paid jobs, new jobs. They created, these virtuous circles that were talked about, and all sorts of names were given to these things, sunrise industries and so on. But they were a huge part, and then suddenly they just disappeared. And about the time that the globalists, mass migration kicked off, around that same time, all these startup businesses just suddenly disappeared. Now, of course, you can see the one or two, but when you look at how, Facebook and all that stuff, the big end of town, the financiers got into there very early. This idea that it was just Zuckerberg making a piece of software so that guys could check out the chicks or something. That's the fable. That's the myth. The reality is that the big finance were in there right at the very early stages, before it was anything to talk about. And this is where we go to next here with big finance. Now, what's brought this home just in the last few days is there's not far away from where I live, by the way. There was a startup company. There was a guy invented this new technology. This is in kind of, I guess you'd call it the civil engineering sector, I suppose. He created this new technology and methodology and started up a business and turned it into an extremely viable business within a relatively short space of time. Now it's not huge yet, or employed maybe, I don't know, 50, 60 people, given the amount of reinvestment he has to make in it. But he still walked away with a cool $2 million last year, which just shows how profitable and successful this business has been within a short space of time. And I think it's less than 5 years. So along comes, and this is really the nub of the story, along comes a financial company, a venture capitalist in effect. And the venture capitalist offers, with a business like that, I'm just using the basic sort of formula here, but a business like that would sell for 4 to 5 times, give or take, 4 to 5 times its annual profit. And usually you'd want a few years of that profit, but the $2 million was the highest profit this guy had. So the venture capitalist company, they offer this guy 11 or $12 million it was, which is a fair price for the company, for the business. But no, it's his baby. He started up. He wants to grow it. He wants to create a national business and so on. But so he says no. So they come back and say, well, what about 15 million, which is quite a bit more than the business is actually worth. Sure, its futures are promising, but that's more than the business is worth. And this guy has reasonably unique expertise and skill. So anyway, then it goes. He still knocks it back. So they then offer more than double the going price for the business. So they're paying way over the card for the business. And he, like anybody, I think, would realize this is a life-changing amount of money, and I'll never need to work again, or I'll have enough money to start up some other venture, or just hang out, which is what he ended up doing. Just hang out, having a never-ending vacation, a never-ending 6-star vacation. So he sells the business. Now, what does the venture capitalists do with the business? Well, they just sell that business on to a bigger business, already a multinational business. So they're effectively spotters for growth through acquisition for this big multinational firm. Now, due to the way they structure their tax, the offsets, offshore loans, and things like that, it doesn't matter what they pay. Well, to a point. It doesn't really matter what they pay for the business. So they've paid way over the card for this business. Now, because of that, they want to make their money back. They have to then focus on, well, how do we make our money? We've paid way too much for this business. How do we make our money back? Well, we do it through a number of things. One is through tax avoidance. So we structure the international finance to buy this company in a way that means we won't have to pay tax. We then use tax write-off capabilities in the overpayment on one balance sheet. So I don't want to get too technical here, but effectively it's they're using international financial alchemy to avoid paying tax, because they pay too much of the business. So they've got many millions of tax they want to recoup. Then they look at the employees. Now they're all local employees, all straight white males type thing. Well, we can't have that. We've got to bring in workers from overseas that we can pay half as much. So we reduce the price of the payroll. So all the white people, all the straight white males get shown the door, and they bring in brown and black peasants from the third world and try and use them. It may not work out. Maybe productivity falls off a cliff, but hey, who cares? We're talking about a set of financial books here. How does it look on the books? Now, on top of that, this company is sourcing all of its bits and pieces locally from local manufacturers, and there have been good relationships developed over time. All this sort of stuff. Well, that goes out the door. Now we're going to get all our stuff made much more cheaply at a much lower quality, by the way, in China. So all the local suppliers lose out as well. So it's hard to figure, has anybody won out of this? Has anybody gained out of it? Commercially, that is. You know, all the straight white males have lost their jobs. They're replaced with third world peasants and so on and so forth. The prices go up because they want to recoup. They think they've got a bit of a monopoly in this area. So the whole thing really is a huge scam. But the point is that a business has been destroyed. It's just been backfilled into another bigger business. Now, this bigger business, of course, has a lot of, when I say synergies, for example, there's a, health and safety and human resource sort of people working in that company that got bought out. Well, they're not needed now because those people already exist in the bigger entity. There are accountants, and bookkeepers and that sort of thing. Well, they don't need it because that bigger entity already has that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of people who are immediately made redundant and shown the door. But the material point here is that the business the business doesn't exist anymore. There are no new jobs. In fact, there's a loss of jobs. There's no new jobs created, and the jobs that still stay there are lower paid jobs than they were previously. So now the guy who started up the business, he's benefited. He's got a huge payout. But he and his wife, they just want, now they've got all this money and they don't have to worry about money anymore. We've always wanted to do these 6-star cruises and go to these exotic locations and stay in $5,000 a night suites and this sort of stuff. That's the life they want to live now. They've decided that's how they want to live, and and we still put away a nice nest egg for the children and this sort of stuff. Now, so when you multiply that happening by thousands or even tens of thousands just across Australia, let alone the United States and this sort of thing, then we can see how that vibrant engine room of the economy that used to exist, startup businesses, the entrepreneur, the go-getter, and so on, they don't exist anymore. And at the minute or the second they get a business that appears on anyone's radar, it gets jumped on and bought out and then backfilled into a big multinational firm. And that vibrancy, that inventor, that innovative spirit, and that spirit that conquered the West in the United States, the pioneer and all this sort of stuff, that all goes. And over certainly the last few decades, that's been watered down and watered down and watered down. So you don't see it anymore. Now you might see the odd person cutting a bit of code to write a new app, but how many people do you need to do that? Really? How many people working? The value add. If you look at, say, something that gets set up like a Twitter originally, how many people do you actually need? I mean, the idea that they employ 10 to 15,000 people. 80% of whom did absolutely nothing. 90% of whom did absolutely nothing. That's not any sort of form of known reality. That's part of the wider social engineering stuff. But coming back to the setting up, the startup businesses and all that sort of thing, that's when those jobs that those businesses used to generate don't exist anymore. And a lot of those jobs, in fact, nearly all of those jobs were perfect, tailor-made for go-getter straight white males. But as those businesses have disappeared, so too have the opportunities for straight white males in that get-up. I've done quite well over the years through startup businesses. So it's something that I feel particularly keenly on. But whereas you could look at the 40 years ago or 30 years ago or whatever, you could look at the employment section and you could see startup businesses all over the place. Today you look and you might get the odd software, someone's designed an app and they hope it's going to go, you might get an odd one or two of that, but it's going to get bought out if it achieves any success, or even looks like it's going to be successful will be bought out. Or in the case of, say, online mass media communications, the CIA and their flunkies and goons in big finance were all over that. The power of that mass media, online mass media, was recognised quite early, and the need to control it was also identified as being essential, which is why all the big platforms were globalist controlled from the earlier days. The YouTubes and the Googles and all this thing. Do you think those companies would have been as successful as quickly as they were if they didn't have big finance backing from the outset, and that they had to follow the directions and rules that, okay, we'll give you all this money, but you got to say bad things about Donald Trump. Okay, done deal. So this is where all the startup business has gone. But this recent one, just near where I live, sort of drilled it home that business is gone, and the people, the most capable, energetic, go-getter people in there were the first to be thrown out the door as the new owners took over. And I think the big finance makes their cut of the action here. They do all right. But really no one else does. Everyone else, other than the guy who got the big payout, everyone else is a loser. Now, if that guy started up another business that also was, maybe that would be a benefit to the, with some of the expertise and lessons he's learned in that other venture. But he's not doing that. He wants to go on now a never-ending vacation. And fine if that's what he wants to do. I mean, it's his money, for goodness sakes, why not? But even the money he's spending is all spent, with international hotel chains, international cruise lines, all of whom employ, third world slave labor anyway. I mean, you could hardly call them entrepreneurs. So I think it's a direct loss to the community, the business society, to the nation, to the taxpayer. It's a net loss, and yet it's happening all around us, and at great cost, I would argue. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.